Hi everyone, so I'm going to be going through the final section of Stave 4, which we didn't annotate because of how blurry it was on the visualiser. So I'm going from page 132, so if you find yourself page 132, and I'll be going all the way up to the end of the stave, which is 144. Now you've already highlighted the key bits from the lesson, the live lesson where I went through it. So all I'm doing is just adding the things in the margins, the key ideas and thoughts for you to just copy down. And I've done it as a video so you can easily see it, and you can pause the video if you miss anything, okay? So just turn this around, there we go. So the first thing is, the bit that we left it on was when Scrooge was seeing this dead body in a room, and he's going to find out at the end, as we know, because we've read to the end of the chapter now, that it's his body, but he doesn't know that at this point, okay? Now, the sound of gnawing rats obviously highlights how no one cares about Scrooge's death, because the only living thing that is there when he's died is these rats and the cat tearing at the door. So there's a sense of emptiness and loneliness. He says, "I shall not leave its lesson, trust me." So we'll underline lesson, and we'll just put Scrooge, arrow, ready to change. We get this real sense when he sees this dead body that he realises this could be him, doesn't know it is him, and that he needs to learn from it. Okay, skip on to the next page, 134. Now this bit is the description of the people that owe Scrooge money, and how they are behaving in reaction to his death. So if we just go to 132 first, which is this, it begins with this bit here, and in red pen, which I haven't got one ready. See if I can quickly find one. That one will do. In red pen, that's what I'm recording the key events on, but obviously you might have been doing it differently. So visit. Let's see if this pen's going to work. Let's give it a little scribble. There we go. Visit family who owe money to dead man. So the ghost shows Scrooge this family because he asks to see an emotion connected with this man's death, and the only emotion that he can be shown is that these people are happy about it. So that's on 132. Over to 134, they talk about Scrooge being a merciless creditor. They basically say that nobody who they will then owe money to will ever, excuse me, will ever be as bad as Scrooge. So Scrooge shows no mercy to those that are in debt to him. It's just nice use of merciless to describe Scrooge. Links nicely to merciless I sees wind. Now we move on. He then asks to see some tenderness connected with a death, not that man's death, and they go to the Cratchit house. That's what the ghost shows him, because it's the only death that can be, that there's tenderness connected with, because nobody cares obviously about Scrooge's death. So we don't ever see Bob respond to Scrooge's death or Fred respond to Scrooge's death. Neither of them, we obviously are meant to assume that neither of them have any contact with Scrooge anymore. So we've got this repetition. Dickens really slows that sentence down and emphasises the kind of silence that has descended on this family after the loss of Tiny Tim. So it's showing us the change of atmosphere with this family and therefore the impact of Tim's death. Now, it says that the little Cratchits were as still as statues, which is a lovely simile. But if you compare it to when we meet them in Stave 3, they're very, the young Cratchit children are really vocal, they're shouting out, they're getting involved, they're having a laugh. There's a sense of unity. Now, there's still unity once he dies, but they've become much more silent and respectful after the death of Tim, especially when it's obviously immediately after, because the body's still in the house. So on that next page, Bob arrives. I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed. So this juxtaposes Stave 3. Bob is faster with Tim. So Dickens is highlighting here that him being in their family is not a burden. It doesn't weigh them down. In fact, it almost makes them stronger. It definitely makes Bob more lively. For this bit here, the family work hard despite obviously what they're facing. So just a reminder there that Dickens is highlighting these deserving poor people. They're not lazy, or the word is idle that Scrooge has used to describe poor people. Okay. Pause there if you need that bit. Over here, this bit's quite important because this is all juxtaposition. So juxtaposes Scrooge's death for various reasons, and there'll be a couple more reasons on the next page. So let's just put some notes down here. So the grave is in a green, lovely place. And there's clearly Bob's love and affection. So if we think back to what I just read with the rats, so Scrooge has nobody caring when he dies. Obviously, Tiny Tim has this whole family in mourning. Tiny Tim is going to be buried in a green place, and it's a nice place to go. Whereas Scrooge, we later find out, is in a neglected graveyard full of weeds. More here to do with the juxtaposition with Scrooge. So let's just do a little, how can we do this? Tim versus Scrooge's deaths. So Tim's is light, is literally lighted. Scrooge's is described as dark. In Tim's, there are people present, versus Scrooge's, where there are only rats or cats. People visit Tim's deathbed, and for Scrooge's, no one is there. It is empty. So there's lots going on here. Dickens is showing this real juxtaposition. Obviously, he's highlighting the fact that if you die, sorry, one last one, warm versus cold. If you die, and you can have all the money in the world, but if nobody cares about you and you've created no relationships, then you will die alone in a cold, empty room with nobody there. Or you could be like Tim, which is just love everyone, care about everyone, positive, happy outlook, and people will care when you die. Now, there's this bit where they mention Fred seeing Bob, and this bit is about responsible rich people, essentially. So Fred equals kind, responsible, rich. So Dickens isn't saying that all rich people are bad. He's saying that some can be nice like this. So he listens to Bob, shows he cares by asking him what's happened with Tiny Tim, what's making him upset, saying he feels bad for him. And then on this next bit here, so to be socially responsible, right, to care about society, to care about other people, it's not necessarily as simple as being about money. It's not just about giving money to charity. Showing that you care about others is not as simple as paying a bit of money in a donation box. It's also about showing you care and showing you will help and that you'll be there if they need you. And that's what Fred is. It's not just about the money, and that's what Bob is saying. Now, they basically say that they're never gonna forget Tiny Tim, and that's what's being said here. And the point is that for the rich, because they don't have money to worry about, family becomes much more important. Love and family becomes much more important. Okay. Pause there if you need that. So, on to 140. So there's this kind of semantic field. Let's go for semantic field. Not so much this one. Of unity, and maybe remembering, remembrance or remembering. So the family won't ever forget Tiny Tim, obviously, and the things they learnt from him, and obviously that again compares to Scrooge's death. There is a small bit here, so we'll just make a note of it, where he, Scrooge, not in, oh, sorry, not that, in his office. So the ghost takes him to where Scrooge works, and Scrooge looks in and doesn't see himself, and he thinks, oh, that's okay, I must have changed, rather than to realising it's him. So the last place the ghost takes Scrooge is to his kind of grave. Just trying to think of the word for it then. And we get this impression that the grave is very different to the very different to the one that Tiny Tim is going to be buried in. Okay, so here juxtaposes Tiny Tim's grave. So Bob mentions how green it will be, and here we've got this sense of decay, lack of care. It's almost like overgrown, which is where Scrooge ends up buried, probably because no one's going to visit him. Now Scrooge asks this really important question, and he's basically saying, is this will this happen? Like, is this definitely going to happen? Or is it something that might happen? Well, it may happen. So, he's using modal verbs here. And he's asking, is the future fixed? So, can I change? Can I be a better person? And will I change the future? Will I change my death? Or he might be more concerned about Tiny Tim's death. We don't really know. And the point here is that Scrooge doesn't know if it's too late for him to change. And the ghost never answers him. Which tells us that he may change and become a better person, and he could still die and nobody care. And that can't be the reason that he's going to change. It has to be, he has to do it because he knows it's the right thing to do for his, like, morally, rather than because he's going to get something out of it, like a better death. So the ghost doesn't answer him. Now it says the spirit was immovable as ever. So still no response and no guidance. So spirit holds the power, gives no answers. So at no point does he speak in this stave. We've talked about that before. And he still remains quiet at that build point there. So that's 142. 143. So hopefully you're thinking, when we think about this adjective neglected, it links to the quotation in Stave 2, a solitary child neglected by his friends. So it's almost like Scrooge's life has come full circle. And he is back to being neglected, but this time it's through choice. So a bit like the adjective solitary is used in that quotation, and in his childhood it's not by choice, but by the time he gets older it is by choice. So solitary and neglected are quite interesting adjectives because they're both repeated across the text. So down to the bottom of 143. Now there's a lot in here, so we're just going to unpick these one by one. Scrooge asks him, assure me, well, he commands him, that's an imperative verb. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. So this is Scrooge finally committing or admitting he is ready to change. And the reason I said committing is he's committing himself to an altered life, a changed life, to be a better person. What he says is, I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. So what he's saying there is that the values of Christmas will stay with him forever. And these values are the ones in particular that the Ghost of Christmas Present showed him, which are things like generosity, charity, forgiveness. And if you look back at Fred's speech from the opening when he talks about Christmas, he gives a list of qualities associated with Christmas. That's what Scrooge is saying he will stick to for his life, essentially. Now he says here, the spirits of all three shall strive within me. So what he's saying is that the supernatural, which is what it's coloured green for, now has some sort of power over him and will remain with him. So he's saying to the ghost, this isn't me just changing because for one night, this is me changing forever. This message is going to stick with me. I'll stick to the Christmas values forever. I'll also keep the spirits in my mind. They'll always be within me. And I'm ready to lead a changed life. On to page 144 then. It's just this last bit here, this last quotation. And this one is from the Knowledge Organiser. So we're just going to draw the picture. It's just a little gravestone, which obviously makes sense. Just looks like that. I mean, it's got a box and some writing on it. That's pretty much what it looks like. So, there's a lot going on in this quotation. Okay, we'll start with tell me. So the imperative verb. So Scrooge commands the spirits. And this is different to how he did it in Stave 1. Because he's doing it because he's desperate rather than because he's angry or he doesn't see the power of the spirit. He does it because he's desperate to change. And he's saying, tell me, answer me, you know, give me this information. But as we know, the spirit never speaks. So his desperation is kind of all in vain. And he doesn't answer him. And when he talks about the writing on this stone, obviously he's talking about his name on the grave. And he's not saying, tell me I can get rid of it, because he obviously knows he's going to die, but tell me I can kind of stop it happening straight away. So the next one that's interesting is the verb sponge. And I know we're not in a classroom now, which is frustrating because this is such an important quotation. But we would talk about when you sponge something, what does that mean? So have that kind of image in your head. If you sponge something away, does it happen really quickly? What sort of process is it? He's not saying, tell me I may scratch away or erase. Like, he's not trying to just get rid of it. He's trying to sponge it. So there's almost this sense of like soaking up his sins or his kind of wrongdoings. He knows that it's going to be a slow process. Maybe he understands that it's something he needs to be careful with. He's saying, I want to sponge this away and I want to kind of take it away, but I want to do that properly. He doesn't want to rush it. And he wants to obviously take away this name at this point, but he just kind of wants to kind of soak away everything wrong that he's done and sponge it up. So the stave ends with him collapsing and dwindling into his bedpost when he holds on to the ghost, which is obviously the moment when he then wakes up for that final part of Stave 5. So well done for taking all these notes, and you'll be doing Stave 5 as well soon.